chosen one, it is time to tell you everything, not part of the truth, not the version that makes the pain look smaller than it was, not the surface answer people give when they do not know what your spirit has been carrying. Everything. And deep down, you already know this is not a casual message. Something in you stopped scrolling because your spirit recognized a sound before your mind could explain it. Something in you knows there is a reason this found you right now, in this exact season, after everything you have questioned, everything you have survived, and everything you still do not fully understand. You have been carrying questions that ordinary answers cannot touch. Why did the silence last so long? Why did certain people leave when you needed them most? Why did the doors close right when you thought they were finally about to open? Why did your energy change so suddenly? Why did the old life begin to feel too small, even though part of you still loved it? Why did you feel chosen, but also tired? Called, but also confused? Protected, but also isolated? Guided, but sometimes unable to hear clearly what the next step was supposed to be? This message did not reach you by accident. A higher hand knows when the heart is finally ready to stop blaming itself for what was actually protection, preparation, redirection, divine timing. You thought you were being delayed, but you were being formed. You thought you were being rejected, but you were being redirected. You thought you were losing yourself, but the truth is, you were losing everything that was never truly you. And before this message is over, something that has been sealed inside your season is going to open. There is a letter hidden inside everything you went through. Every night you cried quietly, wrote one line. Every door that closed, wrote one line. Every person who misunderstood you, wrote one line. Every delay, every silence, every separation, every strange shift in your spirit wrote one line. And by the end, you will finally understand what that sealed letter has been trying to say. But there is another layer I need you to stay for, because this is not only about what happened around you, it is also about what happened inside you. There is a hidden frequency within you that used to feel alive, a clarity, a sensitivity, a sharpness, a quiet inner knowing, a sense that you could feel when something was right, when something was wrong, when a room was safe, when a door was not for you, when a person was smiling with their mouth but not with their spirit. You remember that version of yourself. Maybe you were younger, maybe before the pressure became heavy, maybe before disappointment trained you to doubt your own instincts, maybe before survival made your mind loud and your spirit quiet. There was a part of you that could sense things without needing proof. There was a part of you that could dream, create, feel, notice, receive, and move with a kind of inner guidance that did not need to shout. And then, life became loud. Stress covered it, pain covered it, fear covered it, people's opinions covered it, disappointment covered it, the need to survive covered it. And slowly, that inner signal became harder to hear. Not because it died, because it was buried. Later in this message, I need to show you something simple that may help you reconnect with that hidden clarity, not as a replacement for faith, not as a shortcut around healing, not as a magic answer to every problem, but as a small support for the chosen one who feels like their inner signal has been buried under years of noise. So do not treat this like background sound. Do not half listen to this while your spirit is trying to receive language for something you have been feeling for a long time. Stay with this, because the first truth is this: the silence was not empty. I know it felt empty. I know it felt like you were praying into a room with no answer. I know it felt like you kept reaching for a sign, a word, a confirmation, a person, a door, anything that could tell you that you had not been forgotten. But silence is not always absence. Sometimes, silence is the sacred room, where the divine removes every voice that has been louder than your spirit. There are seasons when the noise has to stop before the truth can rise. And that is what happened to you. You were not placed in silence because you were unworthy of an answer. You were placed in silence because the answer could not compete with everything that was pulling on you. Too many voices, too many expectations, too many people telling you who to be, what to accept, what to forgive, what to ignore, what to chase, what to keep, what to tolerate, and how small you had to become in order to stay loved. And slowly, the divine began to quiet the room, not to punish you, to restore you to yourself. Think about what has been happening inside you. You do not tolerate the same conversations the way you used to. You cannot sit in the same drama without feeling drained in your body. You cannot keep explaining yourself to people who are committed to their version of the story. You may still love certain people, but something in you no longer wants to hand them the keys to your peace. That is not coldness. That is discernment, returning. That is your spirit learning the difference between connection and attachment, between love and access, between peace and pretending. For a long time, you may have thought that being chosen meant being endlessly available. You thought it meant being the one who understands everyone, forgives everything, carries every burden, answers every message, softens every conflict, shows up every time, and keeps the peace, even when the peace was costing you your own soul. But chosen one, hear this carefully. You were not created to become a shelter for every storm that refuses to calm itself. You were not created to abandon your own spirit just to make other people comfortable. You were not created to keep bleeding quietly, so no one else has to feel convicted by the wound they left. The silence came to teach you what your noise could never teach you. It taught you that some people only loved your availability, not your becoming. It taught you that some doors only stayed open because you kept forcing yourself through them. It taught you that some relationships were not built on mutual love, but on your willingness to keep shrinking. And once you stopped shrinking, the room changed. Once you stopped performing, the room changed. Once you stopped explaining, the room changed. That is why the silence felt so strange. It was not only quiet around you, it became quiet inside the identity that survived by being needed. There was a version of you that was addicted to being understood, not because you were weak, because you were wounded. You wanted someone to finally see your heart clearly. You wanted someone to say, "I know you meant well. I know you tried. I know you did not deserve that. I know you are not what they called you. I know there is more to the story. I know you were carrying pain no one saw." And when no one said it, you thought the silence meant you were alone. But what if the silence was the divine saying, "Stop waiting for them to name what I already know"? What if the silence was the divine saying, "You do not need a human witness for your pain to be real"? What if the silence was the divine saying, "I saw it, I heard it, I was there, and I did not bring you through it so you could spend the rest of your life begging people to understand the scars"? Chosen one. This is where the sealed letter begins to open. The first line says this: "You were not being hidden because you were forgotten. You were being hidden because you were being formed." And formation often feels like disappearance. A seed disappears before it becomes a tree. It goes beneath the soil. It loses the view of the sky. It is covered in darkness. People walking above it do not clap for it. They do not see movement. They do not see progress. They do not see the invisible breaking open happening underground. But the seed is not dead. The seed is becoming, and so were you. There were parts of you that had to break open in private, because if they broke open in public, too many hands would have tried to shape what only the divine was allowed to form. There were parts of you that had to heal away from the crowd, because the crowd knew your wound, but not your calling. They knew your reaction, but not your responsibility. They knew your past, but not your assignment. They knew the version of you that survived, but they did not know the version of you that was being prepared. This is why some people could not understand your quiet season. They thought nothing was happening because they could not see anything happening. They thought you were stuck because you were not moving the way they expected. They thought you were falling behind because your life did not look loud, impressive, or visible. But hidden does not mean forgotten. Quiet does not mean abandoned. Still does not mean stagnant. There are things the divine forms in silence because noise would contaminate them. There are callings that must be protected from applause too early. There are gifts that must be matured before they are seen. There are doors that cannot open until the person walking through them has stopped needing the wrong people to approve the entrance. That is what the silence was doing. It was removing the addiction to outside confirmation. It was teaching you to hear again, not the loud voice of panic, not the needy voice of old wounds, not the voice that says, prove yourself, explain yourself, chase them, fix it, answer now, decide now, do something now before they leave. No, the silence was training you to hear the deeper voice, the voice beneath fear, the voice beneath guilt, the voice beneath the old pattern, the voice that does not shout because it knows it carries truth. You have heard that voice before. That is the hidden frequency I am talking about. It is not always dramatic. It does not always arrive like thunder. Sometimes it arrives as a quiet knowing that says, do not go back. Sometimes it arrives as peace beneath discomfort. Sometimes it arrives as heaviness around a person your mind keeps defending. Sometimes it arrives as a door that closes, and somehow your spirit feels relieved, even while your emotions are grieving. Sometimes it arrives as a sudden clarity after months of confusion. Sometimes it arrives as a sentence you hear inside yourself that feels older and wiser than your own fear. That part of you has not disappeared. It has been covered, and the divine has been using this season to uncover it. But before that signal can be trusted again, the noise had to be confronted. The noise of people-pleasing. The noise of needing to be chosen by people who could not value you correctly. The noise of pretending peace when your spirit was exhausted. The noise of carrying everyone while secretly collapsing inside. The noise of calling self-abandonment loyalty. The noise of mistaking chaos for connection. That noise had to be quieted. That is why the silence was mercy. Even when it hurt. Even when you did not understand. Even when it felt like nothing was happening. Something was happening. Your spirit was being uncluttered. Your heart was being untangled. Your discernment was being restored. Your identity was being separated from the roles you played to survive. You were not being erased. You were being revealed. And that brings us to the second truth. The separation was protection. I know that may be difficult to receive because some separations still hurt. Some names still touch a tender place in your chest. Some memories still rise without warning. Some endings still make you wonder if you should have done more, said more, stayed longer, explained better, forgiven faster, or tried one more time. But not every ending is a failure. Not every goodbye is a punishment. Not every closed door is proof that you were rejected. Some things ended because they had completed their assignment in your life. Some people left because they could walk with the version of you that survived, but they could not walk with the version of you that is healing. Some connections were comfortable with your confusion, but uncomfortable with your clarity. Some relationships needed you wounded, unsure, apologetic, and easy to access. So when your spirit started standing up, the connection started shaking. When your peace became non-negotiable, the relationship started revealing its real foundation. When you stopped abandoning yourself, some people felt like you were abandoning them. But chosen one, that is not the same thing. You are allowed to grow without asking permission from people who preferred you smaller. You are allowed to become quieter without being cold. You are allowed to protect your energy without becoming cruel. You are allowed to stop explaining what your spirit has already outgrown. This is where many chosen ones struggle, not because they do not know what is true, but because they feel guilty for obeying it. You feel guilty for needing space, guilty for changing, guilty for no longer laughing at what drains you, guilty for not responding the same way, guilty for looking at a relationship and realizing that love may still be present, but access has to change. That guilt is heavy. It can make you question whether you are being selfish. It can make you wonder if your peace is costing too much. It can make you run back to old places just to prove that you are still kind. But kindness without boundaries becomes self-betrayal. Love without wisdom becomes a doorway for repeated wounds. Forgiveness without discernment becomes a cycle, and you were not brought this far to keep repeating the same cycle with a softer voice. The divine did not separate you from certain things so you could keep rebuilding bridges back to what was breaking you. The divine did not quiet your life so you could invite the same noise back in. The divine did not make your spirit sensitive just so you could keep ignoring every warning it gives you. This is why certain doors would not reopen no matter how much you tried. This is why certain conversations felt blocked. This is why certain people could not hear you, even when your words were clear. This is why your body felt tired around some environments, before your mind could explain why. Your spirit recognized what your loyalty did not want to admit. And that is painful, but it is also mercy. Because the divine will sometimes let a relationship reveal its limits before it damages your future. The divine will sometimes let a door close loudly so you stop standing in front of it quietly. The divine will sometimes allow a season to become uncomfortable because comfort was becoming a cage. You were not losing your life. You were being rescued from the version of life that could not hold your calling. And there is something you need to understand about protection. Protection does not always feel like protection when it first arrives. Sometimes protection feels like rejection. Sometimes protection feels like silence. Sometimes protection feels like loss. Sometimes protection feels like a person walking away. Sometimes protection feels like the thing you wanted being delayed. Sometimes protection feels like confusion because the divine is removing something your emotions still wanted, but your future could not afford. That is why you had to stop interpreting everything through the wound. The wound said, they left because you were not enough. Truth says, they left because access had to change. The wound said, the door closed because you failed. Truth says, the door closed because your assignment was moving. The wound said, the silence means you were forgotten. Truth says, the silence means the divine was clearing the room so you could hear again. The wound said, you are behind. Truth says, you are being prepared for something that requires a different version of you. Do you see how different life becomes when truth interprets the season instead of pain? That is what is happening now. Your season is being reinterpreted. The story you told yourself in survival is being corrected by truth. You are beginning to see that the leaving did not destroy you. It revealed you. The silence did not empty you. It uncluttered you. The delay did not deny you. It matured you. The discomfort did not punish you. It awakened you. And the separation did not mean you were unworthy of love. It meant the divine was refusing to let your future be held hostage by what could not honor your spirit. There are people who can love the useful version of you, but not the truthful version. There are people who can love your kindness, but not your boundaries. There are people who can love your gift, but not your growth. There are people who can love your presence as long as your presence does not require them to change. But the moment your healing asks for honesty, the foundation begins to shake. This is why the separation hurt, but also brought relief. You may not have admitted it at first. You may have cried. You may have missed them. You may have wondered why everything had to unfold that way. But somewhere beneath the grief, there was a strange breath of peace. A small space opened inside you. A little less tension. A little less pretending. A little less checking your own words before speaking. A little less carrying what was never yours. That little space was not emptiness. That was freedom beginning to breathe. And freedom can feel unfamiliar when you have lived too long in emotional survival. Peace can feel suspicious when chaos was your normal. Quiet can feel lonely when you were trained to call noise connection. That is why you must be gentle with yourself. You are not only leaving situations, you are detoxing from the version of you that believed pain was proof of love. You are detoxing from the version of you that thought exhaustion meant devotion. You are detoxing from the version of you that stayed too long because leaving felt like failure. And this is why the next part of the sealed letter matters. Because the divine is not only showing you who had to leave, the divine is showing you what had to rise. Your gifts were not gone. They were buried. And this may be the part that touches something deep in you. Because you know there was a time when your inner world felt different. You had ideas that came more easily. You noticed patterns. You sensed shifts. You had dreams, impressions, instincts, creative sparks, sudden knowing. You could feel people deeply. You could read between the lines. You could walk into a room and sense the atmosphere before anyone said a word. You could tell when something was not aligned, even if everyone around you acted like it was normal. Then life happened. Pressure happened. Rejection happened. Responsibility happened. Survival happened. You were misunderstood. You were overwhelmed. You were told you were too sensitive. You were trained to doubt the very sensitivity that was trying to protect you. And little by little, the bright inner signal became harder to hear. Not because the gift disappeared, because the gift went underground. A gift that is not protected can be exploited. A gift that is not matured can become performance. A gift that is not purified can become ego. A gift that is not grounded can become confusion. So the divine allowed certain parts of your gift to be hidden for a season, not to destroy them, to mature them. You were learning what to do with sensitivity. You were learning what to do with discernment. You were learning what to do with silence. You were learning what to do with strength. You were learning that every feeling does not need an immediate reaction. Every revelation does not need a public announcement. Every closed door does not need another fight. Every person you love does not need unlimited access. Every assignment does not need applause. Every gift does not need to be seen before it is ready to serve. That is maturity. That is purification. That is formation. And now, something buried is beginning to move again. Maybe you have already felt it. A strange return of clarity. A stronger reaction to what is false. A deeper hunger for truth. A sudden intolerance for the noise you used to survive inside. A desire to create again. A desire to pray again. A desire to listen again. A desire to stop wasting your energy on what drains the life out of you. That is not random. That is the buried gift beginning to push through the soil. But listen carefully. When a gift begins to rise again, the old noise will try to bury it again. Distraction will try to bury it. Fear will try to bury it. Old guilt will try to bury it. People's expectations will try to bury it. The need for immediate proof will try to bury it. And this is why your clarity must become sacred to you. You cannot keep giving your sharpest energy to confusion. You cannot keep giving your deepest attention to people who only pull you back into old patterns. You cannot keep feeding the noise and then wonder why the signal feels weak. The hidden frequency inside you needs space. It needs stillness. It needs agreement. It needs you to stop treating your spirit like an afterthought. That is why this message is not only comfort, it is a call. A call to stop calling yourself lost when you are actually being uncovered. A call to stop chasing what was removed. A call to stop shrinking in rooms that only loved your silence. A call to stop asking old doors to confirm a new assignment. A call to stop ignoring the inner signal just because the outer world is loud. And later, when I show you the simple practice connected to this hidden frequency, do not hear it as pressure. Hear it as an invitation, because sometimes one small act of alignment can become a doorway back to clarity. Sometimes 7 quiet minutes can remind your mind what peace feels like. Sometimes a simple sound can help you create space around the noise. Sometimes the smallest practice becomes powerful because your spirit has already been prepared for it. But we will come back to that. For now, you need to receive the deeper truth. You were not abandoned in the silence. You were not destroyed in the separation. You were not emptied in the delay. You were not losing your gift in the burial. You were being formed for a version of life that the old you could not have carried. And that is why the old life started feeling too small. At first, you thought something was wrong with you. You wondered why the same places no longer felt comforting, why the same conversations no longer gave you energy, why the same dreams that once excited you now felt strangely incomplete. why your spirit seemed to pull back from rooms you used to enter without question. But chosen one, when your inner world expands, your outer world begins to feel tight. That does not mean you are better than anyone. It means you are being called into a different level of honesty. There are environments that can only hold the version of you that was afraid to speak. There are friendships that can only hold the version of you that laughed when you were uncomfortable. There are patterns that can only survive when you keep pretending you do not hear the deeper voice inside you. And once that deeper voice begins to rise, the old life begins to feel like clothing that no longer fits. It may still be familiar, but it does not fit. It may still be connected to memories, but it does not fit. It may still involve people you love, but it does not fit. That is one of the hardest parts of becoming. You are not always leaving because you hate what is behind you. Sometimes you are leaving because your spirit has outgrown the shape of it. And this is where many chosen ones feel torn, because you still have tenderness for what you are outgrowing. You still remember the good moments. You still remember who you were before the separation. You still wonder if becoming new means betraying everything old. But listen carefully. Growth is not betrayal. Healing is not betrayal. Clarity is not betrayal. The betrayal would be to see the truth and still choose the cage. The betrayal would be to hear the call and still shrink to keep others comfortable. The betrayal would be to know that the divine is pulling you forward and still keep negotiating with the version of you that only knew how to survive. This is why your spirit has been restless. It is not just restlessness. It is recognition. Something inside you recognizes that the room has changed. The assignment has changed. The weight has changed. The way you are being asked to walk has changed. And now the sealed letter is opening further. It is no longer only saying, you were protected. It is saying, you were prepared. Prepared to carry truth without needing everyone to agree. Prepared to carry peace without apologizing for it. Prepared to carry discernment without becoming harsh. Prepared to carry love without abandoning yourself. Prepared to carry your gift without turning it into performance. Prepared to carry a new assignment without asking old rooms for permission. This is why everything could not stay the same. The old life was not bad in every way, but it was too small for the level of honesty your spirit now requires. The old patterns were familiar, but they were too heavy for the peace you are being taught to protect. The old relationships may have had love in them, but some of them could not carry the truth of who you are becoming. And when a season cannot carry your becoming, the divine will either change the season or separate you from it. That is not cruelty. That is mercy. Because the divine is not interested in preserving a life that keeps you spiritually asleep. The divine is not interested in keeping you comfortable inside a cage just because the cage is familiar. The divine is not interested in letting you call survival your destiny. You were not created just to endure. You were created to awaken. You were created to carry something real. You were created to hear the truth and respond to it. You were created to stop living as the person who survived the wound and begin living as the person who was trained by it. That is the difference. The wound is not your identity. The wound was the place where training happened. The betrayal is not your identity. The betrayal was the place where discernment was sharpened. The silence is not your identity. The silence was the place where your inner voice was restored. The delay is not your identity. The delay was the place where your character was strengthened. The separation is not your identity. The separation was the place where your spirit learned that love without wisdom can become a prison. And now you are standing at a threshold, not a loud one, not always a visible one, but a real one. You are standing between the life that trained you to survive and the life that is asking you to walk in truth. And this is where the next truth must be spoken. You were not being delayed. You were being reassigned. Let that reach the place in you that has been tired of waiting. You were not being delayed. You were being reassigned. That means the life you kept trying to return to may not be the life you are being called into. That means some of your frustration came from asking the divine to restore a room you were already being led out of. That means some doors did not open because they belonged to an old assignment. Some people could not stay because they were connected to an old version of your access. Some plans kept falling apart because they were built for who you were, not for who you are becoming. This is why the waiting felt so strange. It was not ordinary waiting. It was transition. It was transfer. It was preparation for a new responsibility. You kept asking, when will this finally change? But the deeper question was, who am I becoming while I wait? You kept asking, why did they leave? But the deeper question was, what part of me would have stayed asleep if they stayed? You kept asking, why is the door closed? But the deeper question was, what door am I being protected from entering too soon? You kept asking, why do I feel so different? But the deeper question was, what truth has my spirit finally become strong enough to carry? This is why everything has felt unusual. You are not in a normal delay. You are in a divine reassigning. The old map no longer works because the destination has changed. The old habits no longer work because your spirit is no longer agreeing with them. The old explanations no longer satisfy you because your soul is no longer willing to be fed half-truths. The old rooms no longer feel like home because home is no longer a place where you disappear to be accepted. And in the next part of this message, we have to go deeper, because being reassigned means something has to change in how you live now, not just how you feel, not just how you interpret the past, not just how you speak about what happened, how you decide, how you listen, how you protect your clarity, how you know the difference between fear and guidance, how you stop explaining your transformation to people who are committed to misunderstanding it, and how you begin reconnecting with the hidden frequency inside you that life tried to bury. The sealed letter has started to open. The silence has been explained. The separation has been exposed as protection. The buried gift has begun to move. But now the question becomes this: if the divine has already shown you the truth, will you keep living like you have not heard it? And this is what we must face now. Because once the truth begins to open, you cannot keep living as though you never heard it. You cannot keep calling a closed door a mistake when your spirit knows it was mercy. You cannot keep calling silence abandonment when your spirit knows it was training. You cannot keep calling separation rejection when your spirit knows it was protection. You cannot keep calling your buried gift dead when something inside you is already beginning to rise. This is where many people stop. They receive comfort, but they do not change direction. They hear the truth, but they keep walking in the same pattern. They feel peace for a moment, but when fear returns, they give fear the final word. They say they want clarity, but they keep feeding the noise. They say they want healing, but they keep reopening the same wound just to see if it still hurts. They say they want a new life, but they keep negotiating with the habits that belong to the old one. Chosen one. That cannot be your story anymore. Not after everything you have survived. Not after the silence. Not after the separation. Not after the way your spirit has been trying to tell you that the old life can no longer hold the new you. The truth has been unveiled. Now you must learn how to live like someone who has heard it. That does not mean you need to rush. That does not mean you need to make dramatic announcements. That does not mean you need to tell everyone, I am different now. The deepest transformations often move quietly. They do not need applause. They do not need witnesses. They do not need everyone to understand them. But they do require agreement. You must agree with the truth. You must agree with what your spirit has been showing you. You must agree that the silence was not empty. You must agree that the separation was not rejection. You must agree that the buried gift was not death. You must agree that the delay was not denial. You must agree that you are not going back to the version of yourself that needed pain to feel familiar. That is the first shift. Agreement. Not with fear, not with shame, not with the story your wound created. Agreement with truth. Because when truth speaks, fear does not always leave immediately. Sometimes fear stays in the room and keeps talking. Fear will say, "What if you are wrong?" Fear will say, "What if you let go and nothing better comes?" Fear will say, "What if the silence really was abandonment?" Fear will say, "What if the people who left were right about you?" Fear will say, "What if the old life was the best you could ever have?" But fear, being loud, does not make fear wise. Fear arriving first does not make fear final. Fear sounding familiar does not make fear true. You have to learn the difference between a warning and an old wound. That is why you need the truth filter. Not because you cannot hear the divine. You can. But sometimes pain speaks so loudly that it imitates guidance. Sometimes guilt sounds like love. Sometimes urgency sounds like direction. Sometimes panic sounds like responsibility. Sometimes the old pattern uses spiritual language to keep you trapped. So when you are unsure, let the question pass through this filter inside your spirit. Does this bring peace beneath the discomfort, or does it only create panic? Does this ask me to become honest, or does it ask me to shrink? Does this align with the person I am becoming, or does it only comfort the person I used to be? Be patient with those questions. Do not use them like a weapon against yourself. Use them like a lamp, because not everything that is right will feel easy. Growth can feel uncomfortable. Boundaries can feel uncomfortable. A new assignment can feel uncomfortable. Healing can feel uncomfortable when you have lived too long inside survival. So do not ask only, "Is this easy?" Ask, "Is there peace beneath the discomfort?" Ask, "Is there truth beneath the fear?" Ask, "Is there freedom beneath the grief?" That is how you will know. The divine often leads through a peace that does not always make sense to the mind. A door can scare you and still be right. A goodbye can hurt and still be holy. A new beginning can feel unfamiliar and still be aligned. A boundary can make your hands shake and still be obedience. A quiet season can feel lonely and still be sacred. So do not let fear make the final decision just because fear arrived first. Let truth speak last. Let peace speak last. Let the deeper knowing speak last. That deeper knowing is not gone. It has simply been buried beneath years of noise. And if you are honest, you know exactly what I mean. There have been moments when your spirit knew before your mind had evidence. You knew a conversation was not clean. You knew a person was pulling from you more than they were pouring into you. You knew a door looked attractive but did not feel right. You knew an opportunity had the shape of success but the weight of confusion. You knew when your body got tired around certain environments before your mind could explain why. You knew when a chapter was over before you had the courage to admit it. That was not random. That was not you being too sensitive. That was not you imagining things. That was discernment. That was the hidden frequency inside you trying to speak. But because life trained you to doubt yourself, you kept asking for outside proof. You kept asking people to confirm what your spirit already knew. You kept waiting for someone else to give you permission to obey what peace had already whispered. And every time you ignored that inner signal, the noise became louder. The confusion became heavier. The old pattern became stronger. That is why this season had to slow you down. That is why the silence had to come. That is why certain voices had to be removed. Because you were not just being comforted. You were being retrained. Retrained to hear. Retrained to discern. Retrained to stop confusing chaos with connection. Retrained to stop calling anxiety guidance. Retrained to stop calling guilt love. Retrained to stop calling familiarity alignment. Retrained to stop offering your deepest self to places that only wanted your usefulness. And now you must protect the clarity that is returning, because clarity is sacred. Clarity is not just a good feeling. Clarity is an assignment. When you are clear, you stop wasting months on what should have ended in one conversation. When you are clear, you stop chasing people who only respond when they feel you pulling away. When you are clear, you stop begging closed doors to explain themselves. When you are clear, you stop mistaking delayed validation for divine denial. When you are clear, you stop letting your past define what you are allowed to expect from your future. This is why the enemy of your next season is not always a person. Sometimes the enemy is noise. Noise in your mind, noise in your environment, noise in your habits, noise in your attachments, noise in your attention, noise in what you consume, noise in the conversations you keep replaying, noise in the endless scrolling that keeps your spirit distracted from the truth it already knows. And chosen one, you cannot keep asking for divine clarity while continuously feeding the very noise that buries it. You cannot keep saying, "I need a sign," while ignoring the signs inside your body, your spirit, your peace, and your exhaustion. You cannot keep saying, "I want my gift back," while giving your best energy to things that drain the gift. This is not condemnation. This is correction, because the divine is not shaming you. The divine is calling you back into agreement with who you really are. And this is where the hidden frequency becomes important. Because for many chosen ones, the problem is not that they do not love God. The problem is not that they do not want purpose. The problem is not that they do not care about their calling. The problem is that their inner system has been exhausted for so long that clarity feels far away. Their mind is tired. Their focus is scattered. Their spirit is sensitive, but the world is loud. Their heart wants to obey, but their thoughts feel crowded. They know they are meant for more, but they keep feeling foggy, delayed, distracted, and locked away from their own brilliance. They can sense the assignment, but they struggle to move with confidence. They can feel the call, but they cannot always access the clarity to answer it. And that is why I told you earlier that I needed to show you something simple. Not because any tool replaces wisdom. It does not. Not because any sound replaces prayer. It does not. Not because any practice removes the responsibility to heal, release, choose, and walk in truth. It does not. But sometimes, the divine allows a simple tool to meet you at the exact place where your mind has been tired and your inner signal has been buried. There is a 7-minute audio practice called the Genius Song. It was created around brain entrainment and gamma wave support, and it is designed to help the mind move toward a state many people associate with clarity, insight, focus, and flow. Think of it this way. There was a version of you that did not need to force clarity. There was a version of you that could feel ideas arriving. There was a version of you that could sense what was aligned. There was a version of you that could move through life with more inner sharpness, more creativity, more trust in what your spirit was picking up. Then survival covered that signal. Stress covered it. Disappointment covered it. Modern noise covered it. Fear covered it. The Genius Song is not the source of your gift. Your gift comes from the divine, but it may help create a simple doorway back into the state where your mind becomes quieter, your focus becomes cleaner, and your inner clarity has more room to rise. It is not a magic button. It is not a promise that every problem disappears. It is not a substitute for discernment, prayer, obedience, wise choices, or the courage to stop going back to what God removed. But for the chosen one who has been asking, where did my clarity go? Where did my fire go? Where did my focus go? Why do I feel called, but foggy? Why do I feel gifted, but blocked? Why do I feel spiritually sensitive, but mentally tired? This may be worth exploring. You simply put on headphones, listen for 7 minutes, and allow the sound to support your mind into a more focused, receptive state. No complicated ritual, no pressure to perform, no need to force a spiritual experience. Just 7 quiet minutes. And maybe that is what makes it powerful for this season. Because this season has not been asking you to prove yourself. It has been asking you to return. Return to stillness. Return to clarity. Return to the inner signal that got buried under years of survival. Maybe this is not just about listening to an audio. Maybe it is about making one small agreement with the version of you that still remembers clarity. The version of you that still remembers peace. The version of you that still remembers what it feels like to be guided from within. There are people who spend hundreds of dollars on brain training sessions, focus tools and performance systems, trying to access the same kind of clarity they lost along the way. The Genius song was created as a simple digital audio you can use at home. The original price is $49, but the version made available through this message is $39, with the bonus materials included and a money-back guarantee if you feel it is not for you. And I need to say this clearly. Do not search randomly and assume every result is the real one. There are fake copies, ordinary audio tracks, and pages using similar names that do not include the same brain entrainment technology, the bonuses, or the guarantee. So after this message, use the official link in the description or pinned comment. Listen with headphones. Give yourself 7 quiet minutes. Let it be a small act of agreement with the clarity you are ready to recover. If it is not for you, let it pass in peace. But if your spirit has been waiting for a simple next step, do not ignore the pull, because the tool is not the destination. The destination is alignment. The destination is clarity. The destination is becoming the kind of person who can hear the truth and respond without fear. The destination is not to become someone else. It is to come back to the part of you that life tried to bury but could not destroy. And now we return to the deeper message. Because whether you use the tool or not, the responsibility remains the same. Once truth has been revealed, you must respond. You cannot keep standing in front of closed doors and calling it faith. Sometimes that is not faith. Sometimes that is attachment wearing spiritual clothing. You cannot keep reopening old conversations and calling it healing. Sometimes that is not healing. Sometimes that is your wound asking for another chance to be validated by the person who injured it. You cannot keep shrinking to keep peace and calling it love. Sometimes that is not love. Sometimes that is fear of being misunderstood. You cannot keep saying you are waiting on a sign when your spirit has already been giving you signs through heaviness, exhaustion, unrest, and the absence of peace. Chosen one. The truth does not only comfort. The truth confronts. It confronts the version of you that still wants to be chosen by what rejected you. It confronts the version of you that still wants to be understood by people who benefit from misunderstanding you. It confronts the version of you that still wants old doors to validate your new assignment. It confronts the version of you that keeps confusing intensity with intimacy. It confronts the version of you that wants healing without release. But this confrontation is not punishment. It is freedom, because nothing changes until truth is allowed to interrupt the pattern. And the pattern has been interrupted. That is why certain things do not feel the same anymore. You may try to go back to old conversations, but your spirit gets tired faster. You may try to entertain old habits, but they do not comfort you like they used to. You may try to fit into old rooms, but something in you feels like it is suffocating. You may try to laugh at what used to be normal, but your body knows it is no longer aligned. That is not you being difficult. That is your spirit refusing to betray itself again. There comes a moment when the soul can no longer survive on what once kept it numb. There comes a moment when pretending becomes more painful than changing. There comes a moment when peace becomes worth the discomfort of truth. And you are reaching that moment. This is why you must learn to release without hatred. You must learn to leave without becoming bitter. You must learn to become quiet without becoming hard. You must learn to set boundaries without turning your heart into stone. Because the next version of you cannot be built on resentment. Resentment still ties you to what hurt you. Bitterness still gives the old season a voice in your future. Hatred still keeps your attention attached to what the divine is trying to remove from your hands. The goal is not to become cold. The goal is to become free. Free enough to love without returning to the cage. Free enough to forgive without giving unsafe people the same access. Free enough to remember without reliving. Free enough to bless without begging. Free enough to release without needing the other person to admit every detail. This is not easy. Because part of you may still want an apology. Part of you may still want them to understand. Part of you may still want the story corrected. Part of you may still want someone to say, "I finally see what I did." And maybe one day they will. But your freedom cannot depend on their awakening. Your healing cannot wait for their honesty. Your peace cannot be held hostage by someone else's ability to tell the truth. You have to let the divine be the witness. You have to let the divine hold the evidence. You have to stop bringing your wound back into the courtroom of other people's opinions. Because some people are not confused about what happened. They are committed to a version of the story that protects them from conviction. And if you keep trying to change their version, you will keep bleeding in a place where healing was never the goal. So when you feel the urge to explain everything again, pause. Do not immediately send the message. Do not immediately reopen the conversation. Do not immediately run back to prove that you are still kind. Bring it into the still room. The still room is the quiet place within your spirit, where truth is allowed to speak without being interrupted by panic. You do not have to close your eyes. You do not have to stop everything. If you are driving, simply let this part pass through you and return to it later when you are still. But when you are able, imagine a quiet room inside your spirit. No one is demanding an explanation there. No one is twisting your words there. No one is pulling you back into an old argument there. No one is asking you to become smaller so they can remain comfortable there. Only stillness. Only honesty. Only the part of you that has known the truth all along. Inside that room, ask yourself 3 questions. What feels heavy but familiar? What feels scary but peaceful? What am I trying to force that may already be finished? Those 3 questions will tell you more than panic ever could, because many times what feels heavy but familiar is the old cage, and what feels scary but peaceful is the new door. And what you keep trying to force may be the very thing the divine has already released from your hands. Not every heavy thing is your assignment. Not every familiar place is your home. Not every person who misses your old access deserves your new availability. Not every closed door needs another knock, and not every unfinished conversation needs to be finished with them in order to be finished inside you. This is how you begin living differently. You stop confusing urgency with guidance. You stop confusing guilt with love. You stop confusing loneliness with failure. You stop confusing someone's disappointment with proof that you are wrong. You stop confusing being misunderstood with being disobedient, because when the truth has been revealed, your old instincts cannot keep leading you. The old instinct says, explain yourself until they understand. The new wisdom says, be clear without begging. The old instinct says, chase the person who pulled away. The new wisdom says, let what left reveal what it was. The old instinct says, shrink so the room feels safe again. The new wisdom says, some rooms only felt safe because you were never fully yourself inside them. The old instinct says, answer every accusation. The new wisdom says, not every voice deserves access to your peace. The old instinct says, go back so you do not feel alone. The new wisdom says, loneliness in truth is better than belonging in a lie. And I know that sentence may touch something deep, because some of you have stayed in situations not because they were good, but because they were familiar. You stayed because the silence after leaving felt too big. You stayed because the grief of letting go felt too expensive. You stayed because you did not want to be seen as the person who changed. You stayed because you thought being chosen meant carrying the relationship until the other person finally became who they promised they would be. But you are not the savior of every relationship that refuses truth. You are not the redeemer of every person who keeps choosing the wound. You are not responsible for keeping alive what the divine is allowing to end. That does not mean you stop loving. It means you stop confusing love with spiritual exhaustion. Love can bless and still release. Love can forgive and still walk away. Love can pray and still protect boundaries. Love can care and still stop carrying what belongs to someone else. That is the maturity this season has been forming in you. You are learning how to carry truth without becoming cruel. You are learning how to carry compassion without becoming available for repeated harm. You are learning how to carry discernment without becoming suspicious of everyone. You are learning how to carry peace without apologizing for the boundaries that protect it. And this is not small. This is a major sign that your assignment has changed. Because the old assignment was survival. The new assignment is alignment. The old assignment was to keep going, even when you were breaking. The new assignment is to stop calling breaking strength. The old assignment was to make it through the storm. The new assignment is to stop building a home in storms that were meant to pass. The old assignment was to endure. The new assignment is to become. And becoming requires a different level of obedience. Not loud obedience. Not performative obedience. Not the kind that needs everyone to see your growth. Quiet obedience. The kind that deletes the message you were going to send from the wound. The kind that chooses rest instead of replaying the conversation all night. The kind that listens to the inner warning before the damage becomes obvious. The kind that stops calling every opportunity a blessing just because it looks shiny. The kind that protects the first signs of restored clarity instead of handing them back to the noise. The kind that says, I do not need to prove that I have changed. I just need to stop betraying the truth I have received. That is where your power returns. Not in revenge, not in being seen, not in them finally admitting what they did, not in the door reopening, not in the old room clapping for the new you. Your power returns when you stop needing what broke you to bless what God is building in you. Let that reach you. Your power returns when you stop needing what broke you to bless what God is building in you. That is why the separation was protection. That is why the silence was mercy. That is why the buried gift had to be hidden. Because if the old version of you had received this new level too soon, you might have handed it to people who did not know how to honor it. You might have used the gift to prove your worth. You might have used the open door to ask for validation. You might have used the blessing to impress people who were never assigned to understand you. So the divine waited, not because you were forgotten, because what is sacred must be carried by someone who no longer needs to perform for people who cannot perceive it. This is why the delay was not denial. It was refinement. Look at Joseph. He had a gift before he had a platform. He had dreams before he had maturity. He had a calling before he had the character to carry it. So the path took him through hidden places, misunderstood places, unfair places, places where it looked like the promise had died. But the promise was not dying. The promise was being purified. Look at Esther. She was hidden before she was revealed. Her position did not make sense at first. Her timing did not look loud at first. But when the moment arrived, her hidden preparation became public purpose. The pattern is ancient. The seed goes under before it grows upward. The vessel is shaped before it is filled. The chosen one is formed before they are revealed. And this is why the divine did not let everything happen on your timeline. If you had received certain things earlier, the old wound may have tried to use them for validation. If certain doors opened too soon, the old fear may have walked through them with you. If certain people stayed too long, they may have kept speaking to the version of you that the divine was trying to lay to rest. So hear this as gently as you can. The delay was mercy. The separation was mercy. The discomfort was mercy. The quiet was mercy. The stripping away was mercy. And I hear this being placed on my heart for you. I did not let them leave to punish you. I let them leave to protect what I placed inside you. That is the line in the sealed letter your heart needed most. Because you thought the leaving meant you were not worth staying for. You thought the delay meant you were not ready. You thought the silence meant there was no answer. You thought the burial meant your gift was gone. But now the veil is being pulled back. The truth is not being created from nothing. The truth is being uncovered. Your strength was already there. Your calling was already there. Your discernment was already there. Your deeper self was already there. Your hidden frequency was already there. But it was covered by survival, covered by people pleasing, covered by noise, covered by exhaustion. covered by the need to be understood, covered by the fear that if you became fully honest, you would lose too much. And now the cover is being pulled back. This is why you have felt strange in your own life. You are standing between the covered version and the revealed version, between the old assignment and the new one, between what you were trained to tolerate and what your spirit can no longer accept, between the person who needed approval and the person who is learning to obey peace, between the life that kept you busy and the life that is calling you to become clear. And this is where you must be careful, because transition is tender. When something is being uncovered, it must be protected. When a gift is rising again, it must be guarded. When clarity is returning, it must not be handed back to chaos. When peace is becoming familiar, it must not be sacrificed just because someone misses your old availability. There will be people who test your transformation, not always intentionally. Sometimes simply because they are used to the old you, they will expect the same response, the same access, the same explanations, the same emotional labor, the same silence when something hurts you, the same quick forgiveness without changed behavior, the same version of you that carried discomfort so they did not have to face truth. And when you do not respond the same way, they may call you different. They may call you distant. They may call you cold. They may say you changed. And they may be right. You did change, but not in the way they think. You changed because the cost of staying the same became too high. You changed because your spirit could no longer breathe inside old patterns. You changed because the divine corrected your definition of love. You changed because peace became more important than being understood by everyone. You changed because your gift could not rise in the same environment that kept burying it. So do not apologize for becoming honest. Do not apologize for becoming clear. Do not apologize for needing space. Do not apologize for no longer laughing at what drains your spirit. Do not apologize for protecting the part of you that is finally beginning to heal. But also, do not become arrogant. Do not use your discernment as an excuse to look down on people. Do not use your boundaries as a weapon to punish people. Do not use your healing as a way to make others feel small. The chosen path is not about superiority. It is about responsibility. You are not being given sight so you can accuse everyone. You are being given sight so you can walk wisely. You are not being given peace so you can despise those still in chaos. You are being given peace so you can stop joining chaos that is no longer assigned to you. You are not being given clarity so you can become harsh. You are being given clarity so you can become clean. Clean in your motives. Clean in your yes. Clean in your no. Clean in your silence. Clean in your release. Clean in your next step. That is the kind of strength this season has been forming. Not loud strength. Not bitter strength. Not the kind that needs to prove something. A quiet strength. A strength that says, I do not need revenge because truth already saw what happened. A strength that says, I do not need to chase because what is aligned will not require me to abandon myself. A strength that says, I do not need to explain my healing to people who preferred my wound. A strength that says, I can love you and still not return to the version of me that disappeared to keep you comfortable. This is the strength that changes your future. Because when you carry this kind of strength, you stop repeating the same story with different people. You stop entering the same room with a different name. You stop confusing intensity with destiny. You stop mistaking being needed for being loved. You stop letting old wounds choose new doors. And that is where the cycle breaks. You are not only healing for yourself, you are breaking patterns that existed before you had language for them. Patterns of silence, patterns of fear, patterns of emotional survival, patterns of people-pleasing, patterns of shrinking to stay safe, patterns of choosing familiar pain because unfamiliar peace felt too risky. And when a cycle breaker begins to heal, the old pattern does not release them quietly. It pulls, it questions, it guilt trips. It reminds them who they used to be. It whispers, Do not change too much. Do not make people uncomfortable. Do not become someone they cannot control. Do not step into a freedom your family, your past, or your old identity never gave you permission to have. But chosen one, you are not here to repeat what broke you. You are here to end what tried to name you. And ending a cycle does not always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like not answering from the wound. Sometimes it looks like sleeping instead of spiraling. Sometimes it looks like choosing silence because the conversation has become a trap. Sometimes it looks like taking 7 minutes to reconnect with clarity instead of giving 7 hours to anxiety. Sometimes it looks like choosing the peaceful door, even when the familiar door is calling your name. Sometimes it looks like finally believing that your future does not need permission from your past. This is why the sealed letter is not only explaining what happened, it is instructing you. It is saying, protect the clarity. It is saying, stop chasing the removed thing. It is saying, do not mistake guilt for guidance. It is saying, do not let loneliness drag you back into bondage. It is saying, do not keep opening your wound for people who are not trying to heal it. It is saying, your gift is rising, but your obedience must rise with it. Because a gift without obedience can become confusion. A calling without boundaries can become exhaustion. A sensitive spirit without stillness can become overwhelmed. A loving heart without discernment can become a target. And you were not brought this far just to become gifted and drained. You were not brought this far just to become spiritual and scattered. You were not brought this far just to become compassionate and consumed. You were brought here to become aligned. Aligned in your spirit, aligned in your mind, aligned in your decisions, aligned in what you allow, aligned in what you release, aligned in what you give your attention to. And the next step is not to understand everything at once. The next step is to obey the truth you already have. You may not know the whole future, but you know what drains you. You may not know every door that will open, but you know which door no longer carries peace. You may not know exactly who will walk with you, but you know who keeps pulling you back into the version of yourself you are trying to leave. You may not know every detail of your assignment, but you know the old assignment is finished. That is enough for the next step. And sometimes, chosen one, the next step is not a giant leap. Sometimes the next step is 7 quiet minutes. Sometimes the next step is not sending the message. Sometimes the next step is choosing rest. Sometimes the next step is writing down the truth instead of replaying the fear. Sometimes the next step is listening to your spirit before asking everyone else what they think. Sometimes the next step is saying, I will not betray my peace just to keep access to what is already misaligned. This is how the new life begins. Not all at once, not through performance, not through a dramatic announcement, through agreement. One small agreement at a time. Agreement with peace, agreement with truth, agreement with clarity, agreement with the person you are becoming. And this is why the final part of this message must go even deeper. Because now that the truth has been revealed, and now that you understand why the silence, the separation, the delay, and the buried gift all had a purpose, the last thing you must do is open the sealed letter completely. Not halfway, not just the part that comforts you, the whole letter, the part that explains your pain, the part that corrects your interpretation, the part that releases the people you kept trying to carry, the part that calls your gift back to life, the part that gives you permission to stop apologizing for becoming new, the part that says, the season has been explained, but now you must walk differently. Because revelation without response becomes another beautiful moment you forget when life gets loud again. And that cannot happen this time. Not after what it cost you to get here. Not after the nights you cried without language. Not after the doors that closed. Not after the people who left. Not after the clarity that is finally returning. Not after the hidden frequency inside you has begun to rise again. The sealed letter is almost open. And in the final part, you will place down the weight you were never meant to carry into the next season. You will release the need to be understood by everyone. You will release the guilt for becoming different. You will release the fear that peace means you are doing something wrong. You will release the old habit of chasing what the divine removed. You will release the pressure to explain a transformation that is still sacred. And you will finally receive the sentence this entire season has been trying to say, because the truth has been unveiled. But now you must open the letter fully, and when you do, you will understand why the silence served its purpose. And when you understand why the silence served its purpose, you will stop fearing the quiet. You will stop treating every pause like punishment. You will stop calling every delay a denial. You will stop panicking every time the divine removes a voice, a door, a relationship, a plan, or a version of life that your emotions still wanted, but your future could not carry. Because now, you know, the silence was not empty. The separation was not rejection. The delay was not denial. The burial was not death. The old life did not become too small because you failed. It became too small because your spirit was being prepared for something more honest. And now the sealed letter must be opened fully, not halfway, not just the part that comforts you, not just the part that explains why they left, not just the part that tells you that you were protected, the whole letter, the part that asks something of you, the part that requires agreement, the part that says, now that you know the truth, you cannot keep living like you never heard it. So breathe slowly, not as a ritual, not as a performance, not because you have to force a spiritual moment, but because your spirit has been carrying too much for too long. There are weights you were never meant to carry into the next season. There are names you were never meant to keep rehearsing. There are conversations you were never meant to keep replaying. There are versions of yourself you were never meant to keep defending. There are endings you were never meant to keep interpreting as evidence that you were unworthy. And there are old stories that must lose their authority over your future. You do not need to move your body for this. You do not need to close your eyes. You do not need to stop everything around you. This is an action inside the spirit. Imagine again that quiet room within you, the room made of truth. No noise, no pressure, no accusation. No one demanding that you become small enough to keep them comfortable. No one twisting your healing into selfishness. No one standing over your heart, asking you to explain why you no longer want to bleed quietly. Only stillness. Only honesty. Only the deeper part of you that has known the truth all along. And in the center of that room, there is a table. On that table, there is the sealed letter. The letter this entire season has been writing. Every silent night placed one line there. Every closed door placed one line there. Every person who left placed one line there. Every moment you felt misunderstood placed one line there. Every time you kept going with no applause, no explanation, and no visible proof, another line was written. Every time you chose not to become bitter, another line was written. Every time you protected your peace, even with trembling hands, another line was written. Every time you almost went back, but something in your spirit said, do not return to the cage, another line was written. And now the letter is ready. In your spirit, reach for it. Not with fear, not with desperation, not with the need to know every detail of the future. Reach for it with the quiet courage of someone who is finally ready to receive the truth without running from it. And as the seal opens, the letter does not tell you that your life will be easy. It tells you something deeper. It says, you were not abandoned. You were being formed. It says, you were not rejected. You were being redirected. It says, you were not losing your gift. Your gift was being purified. It says, you were not delayed. You were being reassigned. It says, the old life became too small because your spirit was being prepared for a larger obedience, a deeper peace, a clearer voice, and a more honest way of living. But then the letter says something even deeper. It says, stop living as the person who survived the wound. Begin living as the person who was trained by it. That is the sentence. That is the part the old version of you was not ready to hear. Because surviving the wound made sense for a season. You had to survive. You had to keep breathing. You had to keep functioning. You had to smile when you were tired. You had to show up when your heart was heavy. You had to keep moving when nobody knew what it cost you. But survival was never meant to become your permanent identity. The wound was not supposed to become your name. The betrayal was not supposed to become your personality. The delay was not supposed to become your expectation. The silence was not supposed to become your fear. The separation was not supposed to become proof that love always leaves. You survived the wound, but now you must stop letting the wound lead. You must stop letting the wound choose your relationships. You must stop letting the wound interpret every silence. You must stop letting the wound decide what you are worthy of. You must stop letting the wound call every unfamiliar piece dangerous. Because the wound can explain what happened to you, but it cannot lead where you are going. The wound can tell you what hurt, but it cannot tell you what is holy. The wound can warn you of danger, but it cannot always recognize alignment. The wound can remember pain, but it cannot always imagine promise. That is why the divine has been restoring your deeper knowing. That is why the hidden frequency inside you has been trying to rise again. Because the next season cannot be led by fear. It must be led by truth. It must be led by peace. It must be led by discernment. It must be led by the quiet inner clarity that survival tried to bury but could not destroy. So now, in that quiet room, place down the weight you were never meant to carry into the next season. Place down the need to be understood by everyone. Place down the guilt for becoming different. Place down the fear that peace means you are doing something wrong. Place down the old habit of chasing what the divine removed. Place down the pressure to explain a transformation that is still sacred. Place down the belief that if people leave, it means you are unworthy of love. Place down the exhaustion of trying to make everyone see your heart correctly. Place down the old agreement that says you must abandon yourself to keep a connection alive. Place it down, not because it never mattered, because it cannot lead you anymore. Place down the old story that says you are too much, too sensitive, too deep, too intense, too difficult, too quiet, too different, too hard to love. That story was written by people who did not know how to read your spirit. It was written by rooms that needed you smaller. It was written by relationships that benefited from your confusion. It was written by old pain trying to keep you familiar with rejection. But the sealed letter says something else. It says you were never too much for the assignment. You were being prepared for it. Your sensitivity was not a mistake. It was instruction. Your discernment was not paranoia. It was protection. Your depth was not a burden. It was capacity. Your quiet was not weakness. It was formation. Your difference was not a flaw. It was evidence that you were not created to disappear into every room. This is why you cannot keep apologizing for becoming clear. Clarity will make some people uncomfortable. Not because clarity is cruel, but because clarity removes the confusion they used to hide inside. Peace will make some people uncomfortable. Not because peace is wrong, but because peace will no longer negotiate with chaos. Boundaries will make some people uncomfortable. Not because boundaries are hatred, but because boundaries reveal who was benefiting from your lack of them. And transformation will make some people uncomfortable. Not because you are doing something wrong, but because the new you no longer serves the old arrangement. Let them be uncomfortable. You do not have to become hard. You do not have to become bitter. You do not have to become arrogant. But you do have to become honest. And honesty may require you to stop returning to places where your spirit keeps shrinking. Honesty may require you to stop explaining what your peace has already confirmed. Honesty may require you to stop pretending that something still fits when every part of your spirit knows it does not. Honesty may require you to grieve what you outgrew without going back to it. That is one of the most sacred forms of strength. To grieve and still obey. To miss someone and still not return. To love someone and still change their access. To feel afraid and still choose peace. To not have every answer and still stop betraying what you already know. That is maturity. That is alignment. That is the person you are becoming. And I know it may feel unfamiliar, because the old version of you knew how to survive confusion. The old version of you knew how to manage chaos. The old version of you knew how to read the room, soften the tension, carry the blame, absorb the silence, and keep functioning. But the new version of you is learning something different. The new version is learning rest. The new version is learning honesty. The new version is learning how to protect clarity. The new version is learning how to recognize peace without distrusting it. The new version is learning how to walk away without needing everyone to understand why. The new version is learning how to receive love that does not require self-abandonment. The new version is learning that obedience does not always look dramatic. Sometimes obedience looks like staying quiet. Sometimes obedience looks like not reopening the wound. Sometimes obedience looks like choosing the peaceful door. Sometimes obedience looks like giving yourself 7 quiet minutes instead of giving anxiety another hour. Sometimes obedience looks like listening to the inner signal before asking the outer world for permission. And this is where many of you must make a decision. Not a loud decision, not a public decision, a private agreement. Will you continue feeding the noise that buried your clarity? Or will you begin creating space for the signal to rise again? Will you continue giving your best attention to what drains your spirit? Or will you start honoring the part of you that is trying to wake up? Will you continue asking for direction while ignoring the discomfort that has been warning you? Or will you finally admit that your spirit has been speaking all along? Because the hidden frequency inside you does not need more noise. It needs room. It needs stillness. It needs protection. It needs you to stop treating your inner life as less important than everyone else's demands. This is why the next small step matters. Not because one step fixes everything, but because one step can become agreement. One step can say, I am ready to hear clearly again. One step can say, I am ready to stop living scattered. One step can say, I am ready to stop giving my attention to the noise that keeps burying my gift. That is why, if the part of this message about your hidden frequency spoke to you, the official link is waiting for you in the description and pinned comment. Start with 7 minutes. Use headphones. Do not search randomly. Use the official link so you receive the real audio, the bonuses, and the guarantee connected to it. Let it be simple. Let it be quiet. Let it be a small act of agreement with the clarity you are ready to recover. Again, the genius song is not your savior. It is not your source. It is not a substitute for prayer, wisdom, healing, obedience, or truth. But it may be a tool for the one who feels called to support the mind while the spirit is learning to hear again. And sometimes, chosen one, a simple tool meets a sacred season. Sometimes a small practice becomes powerful because your spirit is finally ready to agree with what the divine has been revealing. Sometimes 7 quiet minutes is not about the audio alone. Sometimes it is about saying, I will no longer give my whole mind to fear. I will no longer give my whole attention to confusion. I will no longer live as though my clarity does not matter. I will make room for what is rising. If it is not for you, let it pass in peace. But if something in you recognizes the phrase hidden frequency, if something in you remembers the version of yourself that was clearer, sharper, more alive, and more connected, then do not ignore that pull. Investigate it with discernment. Take the step with peace, and let it support what the divine is already awakening inside you. Because the real miracle is not that you find a tool. The real miracle is that you stop agreeing with the lie that your gift is gone. Your gift is not gone. Your clarity is not gone. Your discernment is not gone. Your inner knowing is not gone. Your ability to hear, sense, create, and move with truth is not gone. It has been buried. It has been covered. It has been protected. And now it is beginning to rise. But as it rises, you must guard it. Do not take your newly restored peace into old chaos, just to see if you are strong enough to survive it again. Strength is not always returning to prove you cannot be broken. Sometimes, strength is refusing to enter what you already escaped. Do not take your newly restored clarity into conversations designed to confuse you. Clarity is not something you keep proving to people who benefit from your uncertainty. Do not take your newly restored gift and turn it into performance. The gift does not need applause to be real. Do not take your healing and use it as a weapon. Healing is not superiority. Healing is responsibility. The next season will require you to walk clean. Clean in your motives. Clean in your boundaries. Clean in your yes. Clean in your no. Clean in your silence. Clean in your release. Clean in the way you carry what the divine has shown you. Because the more clarity you receive, the more responsible you become for how you use it. If you sense something, do not immediately accuse. Pray. Observe. Wait for fruit. Let truth reveal itself. If you feel peace, do not immediately demand that everyone else understand it. Walk in it. Let your life become the explanation. If you receive direction, do not turn it into performance. Obey quietly. Let the fruit speak when the season is ready. This is how the chosen one matures. Not by becoming louder, by becoming clearer. Not by becoming colder, by becoming cleaner. Not by becoming unreachable, by becoming unavailable to what repeatedly pulls them out of alignment. Not by proving they are chosen, by living in a way that no longer betrays what was placed inside them. That is the difference between survival and assignment. Survival says, I must react to everything. Assignment says, I must respond only to what is mine. Survival says, I must explain myself to be safe. Assignment says, truth does not need endless defense. Survival says, I must hold on because letting go feels like loss. Assignment says, some releases are the doorway into protection. Survival says, I must be needed to be loved. Assignment says, love that requires self-abandonment is not alignment. Survival says, if they leave, I am not enough. Assignment says, what leaves may be making room for what can honor the truth of who I am becoming. This is the shift. This is the new way of living. And it will not always feel easy. There will be days when the old guilt rises. There will be days when you miss what you outgrew. There will be days when the silence feels heavy again. There will be days when your mind tries to replay the old story. There will be days when you wonder if you are doing the right thing. But when those days come, return to the truth. The silence was not empty. The separation was not rejection. The delay was not denial. The burial was not death. The old life became too small because the new you required more room. Return to the still room. Return to the truth filter. Return to the hidden frequency. Return to peace beneath the discomfort. Return to the quiet knowing that has been trying to guide you all along. And if you need a physical practice to anchor that return, take 7 minutes. Put on the audio. Sit with the sound. Let the noise settle. Let your mind remember that it does not have to live in survival every second of the day. Let your spirit remember that clarity does not always arrive through force. Sometimes it rises when the noise finally stops. But even beyond the tool, make your whole life a place where clarity can breathe. Choose conversations that do not constantly bury your peace. Choose habits that do not scatter your mind. Choose environments where your spirit does not have to disappear to be accepted. Choose rest without guilt. Choose silence without fear. Choose obedience without performance. Choose release without hatred. Choose healing without needing every person from the old season to validate it. Because the sealed letter has been opened, the season has been explained, and the truth has been spoken. You were not abandoned. You were being formed. You were not rejected. You were being redirected. You were not losing your gift. Your gift was being purified. You were not delayed. You were being reassigned. And now, the final line of the letter is this: rise without fear. The silence has served its purpose. That does not mean every answer will arrive today. That does not mean every door will open at once. That does not mean you will never feel uncertainty again. But it does mean you no longer have to interpret this season through shame. You can interpret it through truth. The truth is that you were being prepared. The truth is that you were being protected. The truth is that you were being awakened. The truth is that you were being called into a life that requires more honesty than the old one allowed. So do not chase what left. Do not fear what is opening. Do not shrink from who you have become. Do not keep asking old rooms to bless a new assignment. Do not apologize for the peace that came after you stopped betraying yourself. Do not call yourself lost when the cover is being pulled back. Do not call yourself behind when the divine has been forming what others could not see. Do not call yourself rejected when protection looked like removal. Do not call your gift dead when it is beginning to rise from the soil. And do not let the old wound write the next chapter. The wound had its season. The wound had its voice. The wound told you what hurt. But now truth must tell you who you are. You are not the name they gave you in your lowest moment. You are not the version of the story told by people who never saw the full cost. You are not the silence that surrounded you. You are not the door that closed. You are not the person who left. You are not the delay. You are not the confusion. You are not the old cage. You are the one who was formed in hiddenness. You are the one who survived without becoming what tried to break you. You are the one whose discernment is returning. You are the one whose clarity is rising again. You are the one whose gift was covered, not destroyed. You are the one who is being called out of survival and into alignment. You are the one who must now walk like the truth has been spoken. And I speak this over the next steps of your life. May your spirit stop trembling in rooms that no longer own you. May your mind stop rehearsing conversations the divine has already released you from. May your heart stop calling every ending a punishment. May your body recognize peace without distrusting it. May your gift rise again, not as performance, but as purpose. May your discernment become clean, humble, and strong. May your silence become sacred instead of fearful. May your boundaries become peaceful instead of guilty. May your next step be guided by truth, not panic. May your clarity return without being buried again by the noise you were delivered from. May your hidden frequency rise with wisdom, humility, and peace. May the old wound lose its authority over your decisions. May the old cage lose its power over your imagination. May the old story lose its right to name you. And may you never again confuse being hidden with being forgotten. Because you were seen in the silence. You were held in the delay. You were protected in the separation. You were formed in the wilderness. You were covered while your gift was being restored. And now, what was hidden is beginning to speak. I hear this being placed on my heart for you. Now rise without fear. The silence has served its purpose. The sealed letter has been opened. The season has been explained. The truth has been spoken, and now you must walk like someone who heard it. Not perfectly, not loudly, not to impress anyone, but honestly, one step at a time, one act of agreement at a time, one peaceful decision at a time, one released weight at a time, one quiet return to clarity at a time. And before you leave this message, make one small agreement with the truth. If this message gave language to something your spirit has been feeling, write these words in the comments. The truth has been spoken, not as a performance, not as a slogan, as an agreement, as a quiet declaration that you are done calling your protection rejection, done calling your preparation punishment, done calling your transformation confusion, done calling your silence emptiness, done calling your buried gift dead. Done calling your new peace selfish. Done letting the old wound lead the new season. And if the part about your hidden frequency spoke to you, the official link is in the description and pinned comment. Start with 7 minutes. Use headphones. Let it be simple. Let it be a small act of agreement with the clarity you are ready to recover. But above all, remember this. The tool is not the destination. The destination is alignment. The destination is truth. The destination is becoming the person who can hear the divine whisper and no longer need chaos to confirm it. The destination is walking into the next season without dragging the old interpretation behind you. The destination is living like the sealed letter has finally been opened. Because it has. The letter is open. The silence has spoken. The separation has been explained. The gift is rising. The assignment has changed. And the truth has been spoken. Now walk like someone who heard it.